Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers did not have an MVP winner last night, but they did have two guys finish in the top five. We'll talk about that and talk about everyone else that got votes. We'll get into Cody Bellinger and the big decision coming on Friday if the Dodgers will tender him a contract for the 2023 season. And that'll transition into a little talk about Dodgers payroll and Justin Turner. So that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers, and make it easy on yourself and subscribe in both of those places and never miss a day because you know we're not going to. And while each of us may miss a day, but both of us will never miss a day. But today we're both here. This is your first time listener watching. I'm Vince Samperio. That's my co-host, Jeff Snider. And we're both lifelong Dodger fans that have spent time covering the team and currently cover the team in a few different ways. One of those ways being this here podcast where we talk about the Dodgers Monday through Friday for about 30 minutes. And that's what we got for you today. We're going to talk about the Dodgers. There's not really any news other than the Dodgers had some guys get MVP votes, which we're going to talk about right now. There will be some news tomorrow, but we won't get into them until Monday about Cody Bellinger. And that'll bleed into a little bit of some talk about Justin Turner and some comments he made to AM 570 radio. First, let's talk about MVP. Paul Goldschmidt won National League MVP. Maybe the most boring MVP, or at least in recent memory that I can remember. I guess Freddie Freeman was a little boring in 2020, but Paul Goldschmidt, boring MVP. Manny Machado finished second. Nolan Arenado finished third. Freddie Freeman finished fourth, and Mookie Betts finished fifth. So of the top five, there was only three teams represented. Julio Diaz also got a third place vote from someone, I believe, from the Colorado area, and Trey Turner also received a down ballot vote. So the Dodgers ended up having four guys on the ballot. So yeah, Jeff, I don't know what to get started on with there.
Yeah, Goldschmidt's not a surprise. He was the deserving MVP. You know, we talked when we knew that nobody on the Dodgers was going to finish in the top three because they announced the finalists a couple weeks ago, and you could quibble with really any of those top four. Any of 2 through 4. I think you could have put them in any order and you wouldn't have been wrong. I was a little surprised by Mookie Betts at fifth. I thought Mookie had a fine year, but it wasn't his best year, and he wasn't consistent. That's for sure. You know, he had hot streaks and whatever. Played very good defense, and was a really good player. Mookie is always going to be a really good player. I wonder though if some of that fifth place finish was a little bit of reputation. I don't know where I would have put him. I haven't dug in far enough, but I don't know. Were you surprised by that one? You're muted.
I was maybe not too surprised. I mean, he, like I said, he did have a good year. If you break down that one streak we had after the slow start to the season until toward like the end of the season when he started struggling, I mean, he was really good in those 5 months, and he did have a little bit more of the power numbers. His defense seemed back on track this year, so maybe a little higher just based on reputation. I do think that you know of those top names, him and Machado are probably the most exciting in terms of people that that you want to watch. Nolan Arenado is fun to watch on defense. On offense, is not so fun to watch, especially since he runs kind of weird. And Paul Goldschmidt is just kind of there. Freddie Freeman, awkward swing, just kind of there as well. But yeah, wasn't surprised. But yeah, I mean, realistically, it felt like one of those years where the Dodgers, back when they were 2017, 2018, or 2017, 2019, where they were really, really, really good, but they didn't have like one standout person. That's kind of where they were here. And it showed by having two guys in the top five, but not in the top three.
Yeah, and I guess now that I'm looking at the ballots, it wasn't Mookie had by far the most fifth place votes. It seemed to be not quite a consensus, but pretty common. 14 out of the 30 voters said, "Yeah, Mookie's in fifth place." And you look at the other guys who were right behind him: Austin Riley, JT Realmuto, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor. Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I just hadn't thought that much about it, since fifth place in the MVP race is about as meaningless as you can get as far as awards go. But yeah, maybe Mookie, I don't know, maybe I took him for granted, didn't give him enough credit, or maybe uh, voters were looking at the raw numbers and people watched him every day and kind of saw the inconsistency a little bit. I don't know. Maybe Mookie was there. I personally, it's funny how these ballots always work out. It's almost always the guy who finishes in first got the most first place votes. The guy who finishes in second got the most second place votes, and straight on down the line. And that's definitely the case all the way 1 through 6 here. And I really was, a couple weeks ago when they announced the finalists, I was a little surprised that Arenado and Goldschmidt didn't split the ballot a little bit. But yeah, the fact that Freeman didn't finish ahead of Arenado Machado surprised me a little bit, just because usually, or at least historically, MVP has been more of an offensive award, and maybe represents a change in the electorate a little bit, that they are looking at defense, because Freeman had a better offensive season than Machado or Arenado, and a lot of their value came from their defense. And in the past, that wouldn't have mattered much. I mean, I'm old enough to remember Andre Dawson win the MVP because he hit 47 home runs or 49 home runs, whatever it was, in 1987, and he didn't have a good season at all. And even as recently as whenever it was, 2007 or 8, when Ryan Howard beat out Albert Pujols, didn't have nearly the season Pujols did, but he had more homers and RBIs, and so he won it. But yeah, maybe it's a good sign that things are changing and people are appreciating a full ball player a little bit more.
Yeah. One note on the guy that put Julio in third, Tracy Ringolsby, he also had Daniel Bard ninth. So Daniel Bard got a down ballot MVP vote. So congrats to him.
If I remember right, Ringolsby is the one who in 2019 voted for Anthony Rendon, put Anthony Rendon first in MVP, put Yelich fourth and Bellinger fifth, the year that everybody agreed it was between Bellinger and Yelich. I'm pretty sure it was Ringolsby who put those two guys fourth and fifth. So, yeah, Ringolsby has long been a case study for guys who don't take their voting responsibility very seriously. So, congratulations, Cowboy Tracy.
Yeah, I just searched his name and he's wearing a cowboy hat in every photo. So yeah, congrats to him.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna talk about.
I shared
more
a bathroom
specific-
with him at the winter meetings one time, just so you know.
There you go.
Yeah.
You guys did not have the matching hats, though. I don't think so.
Nope. They don't make
Gonna
cowboy hats in my size, I don't think.
gonna talk about Cody Bellinger. The decision's been looming for a while. We've talked about it, but we'll talk about it a little bit more. And that's what we're gonna do. But first, we're gonna talk about BetOnline, because today's show is brought to you by BetOnline.net. They're your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. They got all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league, from football to basketball to soccer to esports. They've got it all at betonline.net. World Cup coming soon. Check that out on there. They got podcasts on there as well. So go to betonline.net and get all the stuff that you need to be a better sports bettor. Ooh, two types of better in that sentence. They're the fastest and easy way to get your betting fix, and you can check them out at betonline.net on your laptop or mobile device to learn more. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, Jeff. Before we get started, just thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Check out Locked On Sports today and go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All right. So Cody Bellinger, the day to decide if the Dodgers will tender him a contract is here. like I said, we won't talk about it until Monday unless something drastic happens. But I feel like we've talked about it from a lot of different angles. But now that it's actually here, we can be a little more forceful with our thoughts and maybe make a decision of what we think is going to happen, similar to what we did for the qualifying offers. So I will send it over to you, and we can get started.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers want to keep Bellinger. I think it will be uh, hard. I think it would be hard to give up on a guy at this age with his level of talent, his level of past success. I did some searching and discovered that nobody has ever been non-tendered after winning an MVP award. It's pretty rare to win an MVP early enough in your career that you then still have time to slump badly enough for long enough that anybody would even consider non-tendering you. And it's never happened. And but I do feel like maybe the solution is something with some incentives, where instead of just going to arbitration, doing maybe even a multi-year deal, a 2-year deal, with a lower base salary and a lot of incentives. The challenge there is you're not allowed to do incentives based on actual numbers. You can actual statistical numbers. You can do it based on games played, and you can do it based on awards. But I don't know that either of those would quite do it for what they would want to do, because really what they'd want to do is, okay, Billy, if you can hit, we want to give you more money. If you can't, we want to give you less money. But uh, you know, we saw this year he kept playing even though he couldn't hit because his defense was still good. So a games played incentive isn't quite what they're looking for. A plate appearances incentive isn't quite what they're looking for. And I guess an MVP ballot, if you said, if you get any votes, if you get a single vote for MVP, then you get however much, because chances are, unless Tracy Ringlesby is voting again next year, Bellinger would have to be good to get any MVP votes. So maybe they could get away with that. I feel like that would be the ideal situation where they figure out a way to say, yeah, let's come back, work your butt off, and earn your money. And we'll do a lower base salary. And if you hit, then you're going to get a lot of money. Even that 18 million that he's projected to make in arbitration, they bring him back for 8 million and have huge incentives. If you finish in the top 10 in the MVP voting, you get $10 million, or 2 million if you get a single vote, and another 8 million if you're in the top 10, or whatever, something like that, where he has the chance to actually make what he would make in arbitration, but he actually has to earn it. That, I don't know if he would go for that. He's a Scott Boras client. I don't know if Boras would go for that, but I feel like that would be ideal anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the games and plate appearances could work, but you'd be towing the line of getting the union involved, because in theory they could just bring him back on that cheaper deal, and if he doesn't hit, he probably wouldn't be in the lineup realistically. And then it'd be a matter of, okay, do you keep him but don't play him, and then you might have to fight with the union, or it might be just a matter of, okay, at some point you're going to cut bait and DFA him, and then I don't think it'd be that much of an issue, especially if he's that bad. I don't think anyone would blame the Dodgers for, or wouldn't be like, oh, the Dodgers are just trying to save money, when if Cody Bellinger's hits like he did the last couple of years, which has not been good, been near one of the worst in the league. So I think if that was the way they'd go about it, it'd obviously be a little bit of some hurdles to jump through, and some stuff you'd have to deal with, but that could be the way to go about it. But yeah, I mean, I don't see, and the thing is just like with him, okay, he has no leverage to get the 18 mil, because the Dodgers can just be like, okay, then we're not going to offer you a contract if you don't want to negotiate, or Scott Boras doesn't want to negotiate and try to find some kind of deal. And realistically, wherever he goes, if he does go somewhere else, is going to be on a 1, maybe 2-year deal with an opt-out type of deal. So it's just a matter of what Bellinger thinks, and obviously it's going to be a matter of what the Dodgers offer, and if other teams, let's just say they don't tender him a contract, other teams come with more money. Is it going to come down to money? Is it going to, does he value being on a good team, or does he value the money at this point, or does he believe, a change of scenery? It's a lot on his plate as well. So I think it's going to come down to they don't tender him the contract. I don't think they want to be on the hook for the 18 mil because I think they believe they can get him cheaper. And I think at this point, similar to like Justin Turner, who we're going to get into a little bit, I think they're fine if he doesn't return on the terms that they want because they'll either find someone to replace him or they'll just, try to get by with what they already have on the roster and in the organization.
Yeah, that could be. John Morosi tweeted out, I think today, Thursday, that if the Dodgers don't tender Bellinger, that the Blue Jays might be interested in him. They currently only have, you talked about the Teoscar Hernandez trade yesterday. They currently only have 3 major league outfielders on their roster, and Whit Merrifield, Lourdes Gurriel, and George Springer, and so there's definitely room to bring in a guy like Bellinger. And Morosi's point was that Rogers Center is a good place to revive a sagging offense. But I wonder, it seems like the issue with Bellinger right now is bat speed, and that manifests in can't hit the high fastball and lower exit velocities when he does hit it. And it seems like Rogers Center would just be a band-aid for that because, it's not like it's a Little League stadium. He's still going to have, if Bellinger is right, it doesn't matter what stadium he's playing in because he's going to have power to hit it out anywhere. And if he's not right, I don't know that it matters what stadium he's playing in either, but for the other reason, because he's still not going to hit the high fastball. It's not like he was hitting a bunch of flyouts to the warning track at Dodger Stadium this year that would have been home runs somewhere else. It's just he wasn't hitting the ball as well. And that's, I don't know that it's hard to see a team like the Blue Jays who are trying to contend in a tough division, seeing them take on that risk and that kind of a reclamation project,
Yeah, the other team that's been linked to him is the Cubs, which in theory would make a little more sense in the sense that they aren't necessarily competing. And if they can get Bellinger at a cheaper price point, he does end up turning things around. Well, I guess then they'd have to pay him. So maybe they're willing to give him some stability, like 3 years at a lower AAV. Maybe like 3 years, 50 mil. Is that something Bellinger would consider? I don't know. Realistically, with Scott Boras as his guy and everyone believing in him, at least on that side of the ball, you would think that he wouldn't want to do that. But who knows? Maybe he does want the stability. He is a dad. They are expecting another child. He's going to be a dad of 2 soon. And realistically, some stability could be nice. And somewhere like, Chicago, where it's, not too bad. Not like Bellinger's from LA, but he's from Arizona, close enough to LA. At this point, he's been in LA long enough. His girlfriend is a model. So I don't know. She's like big city life, but, Chicago is that big city. Toronto would also be, somewhat of a big city life. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors to consider, but at this point, even me personally as a fan, I'm torn on what I really want. I think there's no real decision that can be made tomorrow or today that I'm going to be like upset about. If they do bring him back and offer him the deal, then okay, we run it back. But I know that they'll probably have a shorter leash than they have had in the past, and you're just going to have to eat some of the money if it doesn't work out. If they don't tender him a contract, I'm also not going to be upset. And then it's just going to be a matter of kind of like where we're at with Turner in this limbo of will he be back or will he not be back? And, it's similar to that where, like I said, if he goes to another team, I wish him the best. And if he stays with the Dodgers, obviously I wish him the best even more.
Yeah, realistically, we're not going to know whether they made a good decision tomorrow until we see what he does next year. And, part of me thinks his best chance of breaking out of this slump is to be with the Dodgers with the hitting coaches that know him. But then part of me thinks his best chance is to go do something totally new. And, it's funny we talk about Chicago as a place of stability because Jock Peterson signed there for stability and then got traded halfway through the season. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I mean. I know what I want. I want the Dodgers to bring him back, and I want him to win MVP again. I want him to turn back into 2019 Bellinger. I don't think that's realistic, but I think it's still in there, and I think they, if they can figure it out, it would be awesome to have him figure it out in Dodger blue. But it's going to be an interesting decision for sure.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna push on to Justin Turner, similar to the sense of the money. If it was just the 18 mil, I don't think the Dodgers would blink because they'd bring him back. But it's the 18 mil in the context of the entire payroll, and and the luxury tax and everything else. So we're gonna get into some comments Justin Turner made. But first, we're gonna talk about Simply Safe because this episode is also brought to you by Simply Safe. And if you've thought about securing your home security but have been putting it off, you'll want to listen up because right now, Locked On Dodgers listeners can order the #1 rated Simply Safe home security system for 50% off, their biggest offer of the year, and you don't want to miss it. Simply Safe has helped out Jeff when he was out of town. It's helped out others that I know when they've been either out of town or at work or whatever. They got the system that you can control with your phone on the app. They got the crystal clear HD live stream of your security cameras, the sensors, whatever you get. Simply Safe is there to help you out. They really have your back, whether it's the 24/7 monitoring agent or just the tech support staff that's always there for you. And they were rated the best home security system of 2022 by U.S. News and World Report, a third year in a row. So that's 3 years in a row they've been named the best. And why wouldn't you want the best? We're Dodger fans. We always want the best. So in an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use the Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture that critical evidence and verify the threat is real. Catch those guys in 4K, as the kids say, and get priority police response. So don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system we recommend. Get 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplysafe.com/lockedonmlb. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplysafe.com/lockedonmlb. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. All right, Jeff. So Justin Turner was on AM 570. He joined the Petros and Money show, and he spoke about a little bit of his free agency and how his contact with the Dodgers and everything else. A couple quotes that came from there. He said, "Quote: Obviously, I love being a Dodger and playing in Los Angeles, but I do understand this is a business and things happen." He also went on to add, "I'm in good standing with the Dodgers. Again, it's a business. They have some decisions to make on what they want to do." He did mention the luxury tax. He did say he's spoken to Andrew Freeman and Dave Roberts a few times in the last couple weeks or whatever, since they declined his option. So it seems like it's very similar to the situation with Kenley Jansen last year, where they kind of are maybe asking him to wait a little bit. Obviously if there's someone that comes in and offers, go ahead and do what's best for you. But if you kind of want to wait a little bit and see where we're at and how we're going to handle things, then that would be ideal for the Dodgers. It's a matter of, are they going to go after a big name shortstop, or I guess Aaron Judge is still in the mix somewhat. And if they do that and blow past or get near the luxury tax, then it's a decision. Okay, do we want to go over it for Justin Turner or not? If they don't go after any of the big names and they're maybe going to go with more of a youth movement or make a couple of trades for some guys that don't cost as much, okay, then maybe we can bring you back, Justin, at a little bit more than we thought before. All in all, it's similar to the Bellinger situation where we don't really know. But at least with Turner, he's a little bit older. You would imagine he wants to stay with the Dodgers and that he'll have a little bit more leeway with them in terms of trying to hold off a little bit. It's not like free agency has been very slow so far. Anyways, there hasn't been a lot of guys signed, so it's not like he's going to be hurting for a job if he just continues to wait. Now, if the market starts going crazy, then Justin Turner might have to make a decision for him and Courtney. But yeah, until then, it's kind of just sit and wait, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. And, he actually mentioned in that interview, this is the third time he's been a free agent since he joined the Dodgers. And, after 2016, he came back, signed a 4-year deal, but he was in his prime then. He was highly in demand. After 2020, he came back. He was still in demand. The only question was he going to get, you know, 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years? And what he got was 2 years with the team option. And that's what brings us to where we are now. Uh, yeah, I think JT really, really wants to be a Dodger. And I'd almost say to the point where uh, I think maybe he would put all his eggs in the Dodger basket and would even come back for, if they came to him and said, okay, JT, we are $1,005,000 away from the luxury tax, so we need to sign you for $1,004. I think he'd say, okay. Uh, you know, I don't know that for sure, but I don't know that at this stage in his career, I don't know that he wants to start over new in a new city, move him and Courtney, his foundations in LA, all the stuff he's done there for a year or two, and that's, I think that's the hard part to accept when you're in JT's situation. Nobody really knows how much more JT has in the tank. And usually it's the player himself who's the last to find out that he doesn't have anything left in the tank. And in a perfect world, you would hope that he and the Dodgers agree on everything up to the moment where they both mutually decide, okay, time for you to transition out of a playing role and into a team ambassador role or a coaching role or something. And, I do think ultimately what the right answer is here for both sides is to sign him to a multi-year deal at a low average annual value, something that the Dodgers can just eat. If it gets to the point where, if they sign him to a 2-year deal at, $7 million a year, something like that, he gets, some decent money. And if the time comes, it's kind of what they did with Chase Utley several years ago. They signed him to a 2-year deal. It was just $1 million a year, but really nobody expected him. Everybody knew Chase Utley isn't going to play 2 more years. It was, we're going to give you $2 million, but we're going to spread it out over 2 years because that's better for the luxury tax number. And so, I would expect them to end up doing some sort of fancy accounting like that with JT to say, all right, you're going to get your money. We need to spread it out, and even a 3-year deal. I could see them doing a 3-year, $5 million per year kind of deal for JT. And if he plays 1 more year, great. If he plays 3 more years, great. I have to sneeze, so you say something now, Vince.
Yeah, and the other part too is they can work out the money with like buyouts. We've seen teams do that before. It's a 2-year deal with a $5 million buyout, but the buyout, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't count toward the AAV, does it? Or right?
I think it does. Yeah, I think they find a pretty good way to count pretty much everything.
Well, either way, they could still spread it out and get it wherever they need to get it. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, for Turner, does he believe in himself to be a productive player to where he can hold some leverage over the Dodgers, and so not be that guy that, oh, I want to come back and I'll do kind of whatever it takes. It's a matter of, okay, do I think will be a productive enough player? I'm sure he's had some talks or calls or conversations, or his agent, whoever, with some other teams, and I'm sure there's some interest out there. But I think it really does come down to him and how long he's willing to wait and how the rest of free agency goes. And it's a lot of different factors. And, it's just a matter of kind of how fast everyone else moves in free agency. I think it'll probably be slow here the next couple of weeks. It might pick up a little bit during the winter meetings at the first week of December, and then it might slow back down after that, just kind of based on recent trends in the past. So, if he can wait till 2023, that might be enough time for the Dodgers to kind of figure things out, and maybe that's kind of what the plan is. We don't know. But yeah, I mean, of everything we've talked about, and we've talked about, the money doesn't matter for the Dodgers and blah, blah, blah. But I think clearly it's at the point where it doesn't matter. Like if Carlos Correa or Trey Turner or, or Xander Bogart says yes to a 3 or 4 year deal that's very, very, not front loaded, but very, very, high average annual value, then they're going to do that and they're not going to worry about the luxury tax. But it comes down to, okay, is Justin Turner really worth 16 mil? Probably not. Is Cody Bellinger really worth 18 mil? Probably not. Okay, so let's be smart about it. Let's try to get them back at cheaper. Or if not, realistically, we have people that can maybe replicate what they did, or at the very least be good enough to replicate what, similar to what they did. And we'll trust on everyone else to kind of pitch in, and we'll maybe go the trade route and bring in some guys, maybe give up a little bit more value in terms of prospects, but not necessarily money-wise, a guy like Corbin Burns or someone like that, where you're only going to give up prospects. You're not going to give up too much money because they're still under team control. So I think there's a lot of factors to it, but, I think Justin Turner is a guy that is confident enough in himself to wait it out. And, we'll see if that's what's true or not.
Yeah, he did say he's been in contact a lot with Dave Roberts and Andrew Friedman. So sounds like, he wants to come back, and hopefully they'll figure it out in a way that works out for both sides.
Yeah. All right, Jeff. That's all we had on our plate. Unless you have anything else you want to add.
No, this is our last episode of the week, and noticed our Twitter handles under our names here, and we'll see if by the next time you guys talk to us, if those Twitter handles mean anything. Who knows what the future of Twitter is. So, will this be our last episode in the Twitter era? Only time will tell.
Yeah, the only time will tell. I've seen a lot of people say, "Don't worry, Twitter, even if it's different, it'll still be here." MySpace and a bunch of these other old sites are still active. So, but yeah, it's definitely been a wild ride on Thursday in terms of being on social media and specifically Twitter.
Especially for a guy like you whose job is social media.
Yeah, been weird, but we'll push on Instagram and TikTok, or have to hold it down for a little bit if that's the case. But that's gonna do it for today's episode. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Check out Locked On Sports for the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, which is also where you can find us. If you search for Locked On Dodgers. First, for now, if you search Locked On Dodgers on Twitter, you can find us. On Instagram, we're definitely still there. DMs are open on all those accounts. You can get a hold of us. You can also get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car. If you're at home, turn smart device, play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you on Monday.